Only official comments now, people. Yeah.
Yeah, we're still recording now. But I want to thank everyone for being here today. My name is Jared. I'm the chapter president for AIS this year. I want to welcome our panelists here today, Marcelo, Tyrene, and Tate. Thank y'all for y'all's time today and answering our questions about grad school and everything that encompasses grad school. And so we set up some questions beforehand about grad school through our Instagram and just through the GroupMes that we sent to y'all. That way y'all can set up the discussion and set up like a parameter around those if y'all would like to start off on those. But otherwise, the floor is y'all's. And then also we can do questions via just the chat. And also if people want to just ask by just turning off their mic or turning on their mic, they can feel free to do that as well. But otherwise, the floor is y'all's though. We wanted to leave it up to y'all though.
So one thing that I could say is, many of the questions overlap from last year as well and so on. But last year I did a very, very brief presentation of just like a few things that would be helpful for everyone. I can just quickly go through that, which are like, I reduced it to like 10 slides or something, just to very easily to kind of maybe frame a little bit more of some of the questions that we're doing. And then, because some of the questions are included in there already. So I think it would be helpful to do that if it works with everyone.
Yeah, that'll be perfect. Screen sharing is enabled, so you should be good to do that.
Excellent. So I'll just do that briefly and just to help us all to share our, so yeah, okay. These are, I just wrote 5 things that are based, particularly in my experience. I was a first timer, grad school and all those things. I really didn't have that much of mentorship for any of this. So in retrospect, these were very helpful. So for me, it was super important to not just take for granted what it is grad school, why will you go there for, or and so on. So take it as another opportunity to expand, continue, challenge some of your interest. Then second thing is super important, research the schools. Know what are the schools are out there, what do they do, what do they, if they have specific focus or agenda, how, what is there a tradition attached to that school or not, where are they located, know about that, know about the faculty, right? Number 3, know about the faculty of the school, who teaches there, is it a kind of faculty that you will be interested in working with? The experience of grad school will be more than anything defined by them, right? By the faculty that you will engage with. And depending on the program, it will be 2 or 3 years. It will be significant in terms of who you engage with. So in my case, it was my grad school decision was strictly based on the faculty as well, right? I wanted the school more because of the faculty than necessarily kind of there's something specific about the school. So it was and that helps significantly. And it's something that maybe not everyone do, right? It's like, oh, I think people that do cool stuff there, but who are they? What do they work for? Are you interested in them? Do you know them more? Do they have a practice? Do they write about architecture? What do they do in their sort of expanded work? Look at the student work, right? And that's something that is very easy now. You can just look at social media and see what is being portrayed and shown. And it's important because you will see also how maybe the school is trying to project itself, or is all the work coming out, it's like the same work, it's very different, it's a variety of work, it's something that is similar to what you have done or new, right? And all those things is important because you need to decide if you want to just continue doing something that you have done in undergrad, or challenge yourself to do different things or encounter different things. So and things will change from semester to semester. There will schools that have more permanent faculty, and they might be there doing their same studios in a more consistent manner. But there will be schools that will have a significant amount of turnover in terms of faculty. So the student work will also change. So there's a timing issue that is important there. And then after you do that, go back and say, well, is this enough from my interest? Does it complement? ACSA produced this webpage, studyarchitecture.com. It is very, very useful in a very kind of pragmatic sense, but it's useful in general. You can understand the different career paths, formally speaking, right? How do you get a degree? How can you enter if you're interested in the profession specifically? What kinds of alternatives do you have? What schools option do you have? So it's really, really helpful. It presents you the option that you have within the school, their cost, their location. So it's a really good resource if you haven't yet consulted. There are rankings for the ones that need to, let's say, deal with other kinds of issues, funding or budgets or justification for whatever else you might have to deal with. And so certain people are interested in rankings. I'm not particularly that much, but they can be helpful to understand, what is the role of that school into the kind of the bigger pictures of things. The what?
The screen is not working.
No? Okay, wait. Maybe we lost the internet. Are we here?
Go ahead.
Okay, let me see what happened.
I just shared the link.
So you did not see anything, or? Oh wow.
Yeah, we do.
And that?
Yep, we see it.
Okay, so just there are different, as I was saying, rankings. Rankings are tricky things. Just to super brief background on the rankings. Rankings are made by, let's say, surveys and polls and those sort of things that are sent to firms and firms that hire students from certain schools. So they become, let's say, more or less employable, or their preference. So there is a dialogue between a school, their alumni, and how much they also get employed and so on. And significantly is the school's budget. School budget is significantly into the rankings, because it means that they will be able to, generally speaking, offer multiple resources for the school, the department, or so on. So it doesn't exclusively or necessarily mean that you're going to be perfect coming out after that, or that it's just like the best school or anything. It really means that school have those conditions. Okay, let me see. Okay, so as I said, right, once you do look at the schools, are you confused? Are you excited, right? Do you feel like you know what you're doing? It's super important to spend time doing that. You might have questions, but it's super important that you engage in the process of understanding the school, knowing the faculty, knowing the work, mostly because the schools will, first of all, assume that you know what you're getting into. They will assume that you know and you have interest in that particular school, right? You're not going there because of any generic reason. It's because there is a specific interest on how they do things. So that will be something that you will reflect on your written statement, which is a significant element in the application, interview in the case of this works things as well. and you should know really why would you want to go to that school. And this could range from the specific interests, the specific faculty, the school ideas and kind of work and traditions, but also it could be about logistical questions. I have a family that lives in Philadelphia, so I want to go to school there, or I have support from something, or I want to remain in this area for my continuing work, or I still have to take care of my little brother, so it could be reasons that are multiple, right? Not just exclusively the academic ones. But again, what is important for the schools and why you should really focus on your interests is because primarily the good schools are interested in how you see the world, right? In how, what are your curiosities? They are not necessarily interested in a specific profile, a generic profile. Perhaps the schools that are less specific will be happy to have you as well, and there's nothing wrong with that or anything. But there are schools that are really into understanding and engaging with your point of view. You might go to a major city after here, so they will also benefit from your experience, right? So don't necessarily think that that you're just going to go there and you don't have anything to bring. You're bringing a lot of things that will be valuable for yourself and there. So don't think that you need to go there and learn something completely new and forget about your whole past and life and context. I think the more that we value the sort of place that you are applying from, or even where your hometown is, it would be interesting to see how you see maybe the idea of grad school as a kind of transition to going back to that particular place. So, right, they want to know how you see the world, what you, not just architecturally, right? Already know that you have an architectural background, but they might be interested in how you are addressing the critical questions of today, right? Of our moment. And we live in a very specific time. So that's also very important. Don't be afraid of either challenging, questioning, accepting things that you are doing, you haven't done yet, but you want to. All those things are very important for you to process and set up in your in applications. If you just want to go to school to get a degree and get a job, you can do that, but the experience might not be as exciting as others. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that either, right? But then make sure to select a school that it's really working towards that, right? The idea of that you're almost there, right? And you just want a little push further to go out and find a job. So, right, it's about your view, your particular profile. Don't try to blend yourself in a generic thing or something else. It's really about how it's going to be much more rich if you present the complexity and the multiple background that you bring or would bring to that school. Okay. So a little bit of more of those, right? Your curiosities, your skill, your ideas of culture overall, right? They are all extremely valuable in terms of shaping your application, your statement, the letters that people will write for you, and so on and so forth. Pragmatically speaking, there's an application form, 100% aligned as of today, I believe. Know that the application fee in many schools can be waived if you demonstrate a financial need or financial aid need. Okay, so this is super important because people say, well, no, I cannot apply, or maybe not that one. If you can demonstrate that need, it's fantastic because you just fee the waive and then you can expand the pool of universities that you're applying, which is a great thing that you could try doing, even universities that maybe you weren't considering. Portfolio, the majority of schools will ask for a specific portfolio. They will give you requirements, length, amount of pages, amount of gigabytes or megabytes really, or where to upload individual pages because they use digital interfaces to see that. So super important. I'm only going to say one thing about portfolios because this is not the day of portfolios, but keep in mind that your portfolio is going to be seen among tens, if not hundreds of other portfolios. And that also is going to be seen on a computer, on a laptop maybe, and really think about that single screen as the main. Don't try to make a super large board into a little image. Won't make sense. So that's a larger thing. Letters of recommendation, usually 3, by people that know your faculty, that you know that they would support you. You did your excited work in their studio or in their history paper or in any other capacity. The written statement is absolutely important. It's where you express your understanding, your ideas, your concerns, your challenges, your interest. And that's something that, at least, for example, on my case, for whoever I'm writing a letter, I will ask for that in advance as well, and maybe even help craft in some form. GRE, TOEFL, depending on where you're coming from and apply to. We are in a moment in which you might be benefiting from GRE being waived because of the pandemic. And also I'm already seeing that there is early admissions to a lot of universities that are already starting to accept submission. Usually they are at the end of the year or January. I think some of them are already receiving them. So make sure to look at that. And financial information, no, you will need yours, you will need some relatives, sometimes parents, depending on the school. Have everything at hand. Some schools will have very good support. Some schools will have none. So talk to the people that you know that are there, write them, feel free to reach out. This process may seem like extremely kind of, impersonal and kind of, it's a digital interface and everything. There's always just someone behind all of this, right? So reach out to those emails that said contact us and ask questions. They might really be helpful, or at least clear in how that works. These are questions from last year, but I'm just gonna just quickly, just mostly read them and then stop sharing the screen so we can keep discussing all together. Maybe some of the critical things are related to what I already presented, but decide if it's the right time for you. If there is, avoid the sort of East West Coast schools, like, yeah, but all those things are evolving. A lot of people are in multiple places. They have moved from coast to coast. There's a lot of, it depends on what you want to do after, right? If you're going to immediately get work, if you're interested in challenging the way that you have been trained so far, it's like the idea that you can pick the right school. The right school is the school that accepts you and admits you. That's the right school for you, right? It's the one that in whatever you produce as application, they saw the kind of pairing, and so that's a good thing, right? You can definitely decide to work for a while and then go to grad school. There are both pros and cons in that, right? If you want to work and save money, but then you can maybe also say, well, I already have a work and money, so I'm not going to go back to school. And none of these things are going to be, let's say, of course, absolute, or like this is the right way, or right, or so on and so forth. Don't be afraid of GRE requirements. They are requirements that are mostly, let's say, they're very procedural, particularly in our field. Some people might not take them too, let's say, too deep, and right, so they might be that's something that maybe is not going to be critical in your admission or something. What else from here? there's no formula, right? If you go to school right after or you wait a little bit, both subjects can work well. Or I think I took 10 years. I really didn't have to do a professional degree after because I had a BArc, but I know it's different for Tate and Tyrene. So yeah, I'll stop sharing, and we know that I know we have some other questions. We all have them. So if anyone wants to jump in and start addressing some of them, or you have new ones you want to just raise your hand and do it, and that's it.
I guess I can start. I'm kind of curious about your, wait, can you hear me? Okay. It wasn't lighting up green for me. I'm curious what you mean about your comment about the, would TAMU give me a job if I came back? You said, hopefully not until after 5 years. I'm curious what the thinking is behind that whole little exchange.
Is it there? Let me go back. Yeah, so this is someone's question from from last year. I think TAMU will give me a job if I came back. Yeah, I said hopefully not before at least 5 years out. Tate, how long you were out before coming back?
20.
So yeah, the reason that my response, said like hopefully not before at least 5 years is because it will give you each of you more time to look further and work in different things and enjoy different things and have different experiences. So we don't tend to immediately do the inbreeding of whatever you were taught or is going on. It's helpful for let's say it's helpful for the education process and for that we don't have to kind of try to repeat everything and then keep this for 100 years and we're just doing the same that you learn. It's a kind of a healthy way of approaching education.
That makes sense.
It also has to do with personal development, right? If you're graduating after 3 years, at least gaining 1 or 2 years in professional experience, doing whatever you want to do or whatever you would have exposure to do, it's going to impact the way that you just got educated, but also it's going to give you, again, another way of reflecting back, not only your master's degree, but also in your bachelor's degree. So that distance or this time is needed.
So I could actually just set my and I just put Tate on the spot because Tate actually did undergrad here, but then 20 years somewhere else. I did my BArc and I started teaching in that same school a year later. Right. I had been working in an office in second year, so I was kind of already in a mix of things going on. But after a year I finished, I started teaching. And I did the first, typical representation course, and then the semester after, or at the end of that year, I started my own studio, and so on and so forth. I wish I actually wouldn't have done that way, and just like focus on my own development, because in part, even though they were super exciting times and work actually and so on, I kind of just did a little bit of the same that I was taught, and I just repeated. Right, too soon, and what I do now has nothing to do with that, for example, right? And I think it was helpful for me eventually to kind of distance from that initial education.
Yeah, no, I mean that's interesting. I was actually I spent my senior year at A&M at the Rural Studio with Auburn, and A&M had actually talked to me about coming back here for grad school to help launch what was at the time going to be turning the architecture ranch into a design build program like the Rural Studio. And I instead moved to New York City and I'm really glad that I did that. So, yeah, I can't imagine if I had come straight back here.
In my case, it took 7 years after I graduated from my BArch. So 27, 1.
But the one regrets it, so.
There's no formula for that.
Okay, I think that kind of answers my. I was curious if the comment was more about like don't come back to NM, or if it was more about like don't start teaching right after you, because that's kind of also, I guess, something that I'm interested in is like teaching eventually. But I guess that answers my question as to like.
And that's great that you have already clear or that part of their goal, because within a 3-year program, you're going to have, again, depending on the university you end up with, but you're going to have that opportunity to offer for you, right? And you're going to be TAing with someone who's possibly teaching studio or maybe a representation course, right? And that could also help you consolidate that teaching or education aspect throughout your 3 years of an MArch.
Yeah, it's my understanding that I know that at Yale you can't be a TA or an assistant your first semester or first year. But Joey has already, when he was negotiating with Yale, I think he's already in the pipeline to be considered as soon as he is eligible for a TA position. So, so some of you may think about that.
And I guess it's paired up also with not only your interest, but also maybe your quality of work while you're doing those first semesters, and with, again, your portfolio and the statement that you presented while doing the process of application. So again, don't take it for granted, even though that the statement is thought as a one-shot deal, like getting to the grad school, don't forget that that could have bigger implications in terms of those 3 years, right?
And once you get admitted and you go to a fancy school, for example, there might be other things that will happen once you're there. And if you go to a fancy school and say, "Oh, I just went there, I really going to take classes with this or that faculty," it would happen that then you need to actually have an application for you to be admitted in that class eventually. So it's another, you're already kind of competing with the peers there, and those things were also shocking for some of my classes. I was like, wow, I need my CV and an application just to get a seminar with Bernard Schumi or Reinhold Martin. So those were like, Jesus, really. And they were, Schumi wasn't even really that good class, but you still can do that. I think I would just run through the questions to kind of let at least whoever's asking have like one short answer, and then maybe we can expand in whichever you prefer to. Was your graduate social school experience worth the price? No. There's no way that I could pair price with the experience. My experience was absolutely amazing. I loved it. I suffered, struggled, I enjoyed it, and all of that. Absolutely nothing to do with the price. The price is horrible in my case, absolutely horrible. What influenced your decision to attend graduate school? In my case, I was teaching and working for almost 10 years, and I knew that I needed to keep pushing myself to different things. And that's what I ended up doing a master's late, sort of in my career. And at that point, I just jumped and left my comfort zone, my job, my everything. I had a faculty position already, and I left it and all those things. So taking some risk. Is it important to show diversity of projects in my portfolio? I would say yes, absolutely. Should I reach out to the school admissions office? Yes, if you have any questions. Some schools ask what other college you're applying to. Why is that? That's tricky. If it's an option, don't answer. If they really ask you, just list them. There's nothing you can do about it. I'm not sure why they will do that. Thoughts of safety schools. Thought of safety schools. I have a list of the NAAB, let's say, of the schools, which I usually share with people. I could share it with everyone. I have highlighted, I think, are, let's say, overall good schools, and then you can, decide on. I don't think there's a safety school really, or like a safety net. Like I don't think really there is one that you can say, yeah, I'm not gonna get in here, and then I'm gonna get into this one. Right? I'm not sure. I wouldn't think of it that there's some like that. You might be surprised that then you didn't make it. How many schools should I apply to? As many as you think is appropriate. People that you like, have options.
I guess minimum 6 or 7. I can't remember what's the number. But when you're doing application like TOEFL and GRE, it lets you send, I think, a minimum of 6 or 7 universities. Make sure you use that because you already paid for it.
Yeah, that's good. What is the most important thing to showcase in my portfolio? Combination of skills, curiosity, scales, right? If your project looks like the same and you redid all your projects and it's like they look the same, it's like, okay, just do one thing. So I would say variety, what you went through, don't present them, right? In the statement is going to be very important because in it you can kind of frame what we're going to be seeing in the portfolio, right? So those things are helpful. What is the most appropriate way to ask for a letter of recommendation? The most appropriate way is that you should have developed a relation with that faculty in some form. And in that process, that's something that you will write and ask if you are, let's say you would have, it's not just about time, is if you feel like you could speak well about the work and support their application, right? And it's always kind of, let's say tricky, but you should, I guess, ask the faculty that you develop more of a relation, the project that you were more excited about, or even the one that maybe you also had a good result. How do I know if a grad school is the right fit for me? If they admit you and if you see yourself in it, not because you are just like aspiring to have a BMW, but that you see that, it seems like what you are interested in, you're really seeing it. You're seeing the work, not just like the fame or not the fame or the safety. It's because there is a possible connection. There's no way you can, it could be the right fit or not. There's a lot going on in the process of going to grad school, and from the city, from the cohort, from some of the faculty. So, but I think the right fit, and this is what I was told, right, in my open house. Mark Wigley said always, a little, of course, a little smartass, but said, if the school admits you, that's it. That you want to go there. If we don't admit you, it means that you don't want to be here, right? It's not that it's not that we don't want you. You don't want to be here, because it means that there is not a match. There's not a relation between what they're seeing and what the potential of what you can do there. So that's why it's a good thing. If you don't get in a meeting in school, it's like, good, I don't want to be there, right? If they don't want me, I don't want to be there. So don't sort of force yourself or try to shape things in order to, I really want to go to that school. I just want to be like them. It's like, no, be yourself, and hopefully it will match, or it will, the connections can be made. Yeah. Can someone else take on the next list?
There's 2 lists?
Then there's
On the chat.
the GRE scores.
On the chat, yeah.
I mean, to my understanding, as Marcelo said, for a lot of schools, GRE is more of a kind of procedural ask. Some exceptions to that. It's my understanding that at Princeton, before your application is delivered to the architecture school, that there is a minimum in their graduate school that you have to have in order to to make it to that review process. Is it a good idea to apply to many schools or select a few? You know, I think as Tyrene was saying that I think it's always good to apply to multiple, but at the same time, about 2 years ago, I did write a letter of recommendation for someone who applied to, I believe, like 12 schools, and the amount of time that that took for me as a recommender to fill out, you should know that now, in addition to writing the letter, most of these schools are asking us who the recommender to then go in and fill out additional forms in relation to that. And so 12 seemed to be a bit excessive. I think that you can curate it down from that a bit.
And also,
Advice for
Tate, the curation would be interesting because then what happens if all 12 accept you, right? Then you're going to have a second round of challenges. Who do I go? It's not that 12 is not good to be accepted, but it at least apply as many as possible, right? But at the same time, don't overburden the recommenders, but also don't overburden you. All institutions would have also different applications process for you as the student. So be mindful with that.
Advice for financial aid. I don't know at the moment what the interest rates are on financial aid, but are they currently in a good spot? Or I mean, I know I really lucked out. I went to grad school in 2004, and my interest rate was 1.4%.
Yeah, mine was 3.7. But in that case, don't let the financial idea or burden or restriction hold you back, right? The universities do offer you upfront what it's called COA, the cost of attendance, right? Mm-hmm. That is kind of the magic number that you should take in consideration to be able to make an informed decision. So I highly recommend that as of now, as of today, do the research, but also do it in a methodological way. Maybe build a table, maybe build a document where you're able to start comparing these standard informations and where you're able to see them next to each other. So you start to compare and you start to be aware what are the difference between being in New York versus in Michigan versus in California versus in LA, San Francisco. And I think that could help you also start acknowledging the opportunities that university could give you, but also potentially the commitment, financial commitment that you will be coming out once you graduate.
Yeah, absolutely.
But again, don't be scared about the financial cost. It's a very personal decision, right? It is going to impact you, yes. Is it the best way? Maybe not necessarily. If we would have been in a better country that maybe allows you to have a better social system for education, that will be great. However, I took 100% loans, but then in my second year, given my good standing, I actually was able to do TA. I actually got internships, other types of scholarship, right? So again, that's the other key information that you have to also be aware once you're reading about the universities. What other type of support you have when you're a student, or be very motivated in asking those questions early on in the process.
Yeah, I was very surprised in grad school how there was this opportunity after the first year it wasn't to renegotiate the financial aid package, but based on your one's contribution to the culture of the school, opportunities like TA positions or things that would help to address that cost burden suddenly appeared.
And also, I think to add, I think there was a question about the value or if it was worth it, right? This also speaks towards the idea that grad school is not necessarily getting educated, right? Grad school is more about more than getting an education. It's about social ties, it's about networking, it's about exposing you and testing yourself, but also being part of a cohort that is discussing and thinking different ways or possibly maybe the same ways, right? So when we talk about value, don't flatten the experience a lot because you may be so much unaware that what you're going to get into, right? You may be going to a program being, I don't know, thinking that whatever, I'm Tyrene, and all of a sudden in 3 years, you kind of develop into a new person. And that is kind of the beautiful thing about grad school. And that moment where you're developing your career, you're getting educated, but also it's impacting who are you becoming, right? And I think that's also an important aspect to have, I don't know, centered in what are you seeking and why are the reasons that you're going into grad school.
I'm going to jump in here because just to share some of the struggles of that question. It is really hard to think about going to grad school and not even knowing how you're going to pay for that and the ridiculous amount of costs it pays. So it's absurd. In my case, as I said, right, I didn't have any kind of mentorship. I had no idea, nobody. I just figure out things and try to look for schools, discover there were schools that I might actually apply and be able even to be admitted. And then I realized how much it costs and so on and so forth. Then you get accepted or admitted, and then some of them will offer you something. And I got a full ride for an MR2 at what was that, Cooper Union, but it wasn't really the program, right? And it was a 1-year thing. I said, right? It's like, but and I said no to that. It was horrible, right? The experience is really horrible because I didn't have the privilege to say, oh, it's okay, I'm just going to get $160,000 loans to go to Colombia, right? And I did. I wish I didn't. I think it's wrong. I think it's wrong. I think it's bad. I think we shouldn't be doing that. But it's a very personal decision, right? Because you might have support, you might have some kind of backup or something. If you don't have, you may say, well, I'm going to do it, right? And I'm going to, get the loan or do so, or whatever it takes. So it's a very personal decision, and it will also be, one thing is applying. The other thing is deciding which one after you get admitted. And that's a whole different story. Precisely because of that, because there are decisions that are going to be related to, right? How much money do I spend, and so on and so forth. So even from here to when you applied, and what happens in November 3rd, and how are the next few years coming up, right? There maybe some of the things are going to be changing, right? Ideally, we do have change in November 3rd, and some of the policies and intentions of changing the nature of student loan and all that will change. So it's a difficult question. Ask for money to everyone. Don't be afraid of ask for money. Just ask everyone. Just always ask for money. There's nothing wrong in asking for money. Not just like for money to loan, right? Give me a loan. Ask for money. Like, I need a scholarship. I need this. How can I do more? And if I do a work study, and if I do this, right? All of those things are paid, and you shouldn't be afraid or anything of asking for any of those things to support your education. It's usually hard in the first year or the first semester at least. But as I was saying about, right, others, Joe and all people, sometimes you just need to, right, push and ask and so on and so forth. So that's my take on the money issue.
Yeah, don't sell yourself short. However, be committed on the decision that you make, given that it's going to have larger implications afterwards. It took me 5 years to go to grad school because of the financial reasons, right? I don't regret those 5 years. I also did a BARC, so I'm a different position that you are all. But these 5 years were the ones that I was able to explore in multiple scales, multiple frameworks of working as an architect and as a designer, right? And at the end, it happened that it consolidated, in my case, not going through an MArch. I did an urban planning degree because I had the BArC, right? So don't think about if you're applying and you don't feel that your gut is saying, wow, I'm really on this, it's also fine to maybe hold it up for 1 year. You may also have the opportunity to ask for a deferral, right? Think about the things that you have to negotiate. Don't sell yourself short. Give me, if there's another way to have or earn a little bit more support economically, but also what is my option if I decide not to go this year? Can I have another moment? Either is it a next semester or a whole full year or 2 years? What is that? And I think that could also help you all to feel more comfortable with the decision, right? So there's no right way of doing it. And it's a normal process, it's daunting, but I think it tells you about who you are, but also it shows you kind of an interesting way of learning, but also learning what you want to be or what is actually really your interest, right? So it's going to bring out, I think, stronger colors if we have to talk about in abstract terms, stronger colors that you may not have as strong as of now, as of today, right? So respectively carve that mental space of reflection, thinking about it, talking about it, right? And using this cohort to kind of bounce back ideas. What are you thinking about your statement? What are you putting in? What is it you're about? I'm really liking this university. Why are your reasons that you're picking this university? And I think like co-learning about this process is the best thing that you could do, right? Share the process with each other. Because doing it alone, it could be a little bit difficult and daunting.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I don't know if I want to say this right now or hold it back, but to the fact that we are a 4-year, essentially what a lot of these schools will see as a pre-architecture professional program. A&M students are lumped into a group often with our kind of peers or other students who are usually admitted into the 3-year MArch programs. We are grouped with University of Florida, University of Virginia, so UVA, Michigan, Berkeley, and Ohio State. So basically,
not Clemson, not right, not
Clemson. That's a 5-year, I think. I'm pretty sure. Actually, no, Clemson too. Sorry, yeah, and Clemson. So that's the kind of group of schools that were understood with it. But my point to that is that a lot of your peers who will be applying for the 3-year program, who are coming from non-architecture backgrounds, in some ways, I found that in grad school, they were excited by the things that those of us that have the 4-year background already bring to a program. And so when arguing for that additional financial aid package, to me, that's a good point of leverage, is that you are already coming, and you may not bring that up in the application process, but I definitely, when I was negotiating with Joel Sanders, if you don't know who Joel Sanders is, look him up. I was quick to point out that I was entering into the 3-year program, but how I was going to already bring certain skills and curiosities and questions and just understanding of architecture. So where should I be in the process of applying right now?
I was going to mention that. That's a good one, Tate.
Yeah. I think one of the things that's really exciting right now is in the last few years, I feel like we have people at really a kind of full range of programs across the country. So, one of the things I would be doing right now is even reaching out to them to get a pulse on what's happening in their schools, what are they excited about, what are things that they didn't expect. I found that when I was applying to grad school, some of the ways that a lot of my questions and curiosities about what was really happening at those schools, because let's say the open houses are in many ways to me a dog and pony show. So the more that you can understand what is happening at those programs with your understanding of who those students are, and I know a lot of them are your friends already, and so tapping into them is a good idea. But definitely, if you're a fourth year undergrad and you're thinking about applying right now, I would be spending a significant amount of your time each day working on the application, studying and researching the programs, and just trying to become really in touch with what's happening there.
I want to add, I'm a little bit psyched with when we talk about time, deadlines. I get anxious around these due dates. It kind of blocks me sometimes when I'm creative. So for the fourth year students, I highly, highly recommend that if as of now you're interested in 3-4-1 school, make sure you're building a document where you don't miss the deadlines, where you know who are the professors, where you know what's the cost of attendance, where you know what are the requirements, if there are any special requirements. Then after that, I will highly explode what Tate was mentioning, your social resources. Go into Instagram, go into Facebook, go into Twitter and say, hey, I'm reaching out because I'm very interested in your program, if you do not know the person. And if you know someone that is already in the program, right, tell that person, hey, I know that you went there at school. Do you happen to have alumni connections? Can you connect with someone? Because I want to hear what has been your experience, right? There's no time in losing, in being shy, being doubtful. Put yourself out there, right? The more informed, the more information that you consume, the more familiarized that you get with the topics and the process, the better you're going to feel about it. The more, I don't know, it's going to give you a peace of mind, right? Things tend to overlap and layer, right? You can't do a submission the day before. It's impossible. When I say it's impossible, because you need to coordinate recommendation letters with outside people, but you need to upload things in specific formats, and there's a lot of things happening simultaneously. So make sure you have a to-do list, and you're knowing and following what you have to do. I missed the deadline when I was applying because I was not that organized at the first moment. So that's why I'm sharing this.
Yeah, if you're undergrad right now thinking about applying and you haven't reached out to your recommenders to even say, hey,
You're late.
thinking about asking you to be a reference, I would get on that immediately.
And for the that in relation to the Jerry question, if you, when you apply, take this Jerry as soon as possible. It lasts X amount of years, but take it as soon as possible, because you will have a chance if you want to repeat it and improve the score if you think so. So that's helpful as well.
I took it twice.
Any suggestions on? I think the first or the two lists are roughly covered, right? And then more questions is I think the portfolio as well. Yes, variety, all projects. If you only show that, sometimes it's fine to actually show a first studio project, right? It might be significant. So and shows it not just, it's like, I did this in first year. It shows what you did in first year. So when we look at the fourth year project, we see what you actually went through, right? The portfolio should show that. If we look at everything looks like third, fourth year, say, so, suspicious. Like, and how do I know that you actually went through a transformative process, right? So don't be afraid of that.
And first year work, maybe more so than some of the other studios that you've been in, it shows your ability to abstract. Sometimes your understanding of ways of looking at other works of architecture and being able to interpret ideas out of them. In some ways, that's something that is maybe really shown more in first year than some of the later studios that you've taken.
Yeah, and to the questions about there's a specific question for here about history preservation, reputation side of architecture. I'm not sure what the question is about. Do your surroundings make a difference in this way? I mean, in the school, where the school is, or that's a specific topic. So there are, a bunch of schools that engage with that, and they have different attitudes. Right, you can go to SCAD and Savannah, or you can go to Penn, or you can go to YSAP, or and they will have different attitudes and all valid in their own kind. And so that's what is good about the if you have a specific interest at a field like, for example, resource preservation or something along those lines, will have very specific sort of philosophies in the school. So not sure whether the surrounding of the city, or if it's a isolated campus or a city campus, those things do affect. I also wanted to move to New York City, so that's why I also ended up at Columbia. So the combination was that. So I said, not to MIT or Harvard or something, precisely because I also wanted to combine that experience with I was also wanted just to leave, right? I was 10 years after graduation, so I wanted a nice city to live in. And then next question is, if one is looking to study abroad for grad school, are there programs which are accredited if you plan to pursue licensure, or will one have to study in the US if one to pursue licensure? That's a very good question. I think Tate and Tyrene, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that in the almost majority, not to say 100% of the cases, you will need a local degree, national degree, or if you get a professional degree, let's say somewhere else abroad, then you will have to come back, validate that one, which those processes exist, and then you will need to take the license in any case. But it's a really case-by-case situation. I'm not sure how it is going, how it is at right now. There might be even more connections, perhaps because of the whole sort of international building code and how certain things are a little bit more globally regulated, for good or for bad. But yeah, so it's a case by case, but I rarely see or know of anyone who did you can do a study abroad, and actually it's usually exciting. It's like a 10 times cheaper. And you can do that, and maybe you do a 1-year program or a 2-year program, but know that you might have to come back and do the next 2 years as to get your formal degree and so on.
Yeah.
That sounds correct.
So any other thoughts, questions, reactions?
Does anyone in the audience has another question?
Sure.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, jump in.
So I've on my own time looked at different websites for different universities, just looking into their MArch programs and just trying to get a general feel of what how they can compare and contrast to each other. But pretty much all the descriptions of the programs are pretty straightforward, but also very vague. So I was wondering if y'all could sort of give me a little bit of direction of where I could look to get more specific ideas of what each.
That's interesting. What do you mean that, like, maybe the description of the, let's say, of the program itself as the Master of Architecture is a program that will confer you the professional degree, and right, so I guess that part of it is fairly maybe generic in that sense, but you could definitely, I should definitely look at the Dean statement. Right? The Dean statement is in a good school or decent school. It's an opportunity for the school to present itself and what is the intent of, right? They are putting it there as this is what the school is about, right? This is what we're really looking into. Again said, look at the social media, look at how these universities reacted and have responded or not to the continuous, right, sort of social and racial discrimination about African Americans, and how schools have engaged with these topics, how schools have engaged with the Trump presidency, right? What did I have? AIA New York just released a statement today about not designing not designing more carceral and imprisonment spaces. So this is a moment in which you are going to be encountering certain schools very strongly positioning themselves upon, this is what we think, this is what we want to do, this is how we're changing, this is what we have done, wrong in the past, and so on and so forth. So the dean statement, the directors or head statements are super important, and then through the faculty, right? Through what are the faculty that are there? Many of the, let's say, course searches are open. What are they working on? What are they publishing? Are they designing projects? Right? What does it match? Right? And I'm doing the kind of the hard examples just to but there are people that are just like doing grateful things and been publishing in wallpaper magazines. Like, yeah, fancy interior, sure, right? So if that's something that you like, that's you have more of that. If you are interested in an aspect of the program that will be beneficial to a specific city, for example, if there are things that's like, oh, this is a very New York thing, find a school in New York. Yeah, plenty. If there's a LA thing, or if it has nothing to do with the city, it's about what they're actually doing. You can be surprised how University of Oregon are doing things, and it's like, it's not usually on the radar, but there are multiple universities now in the whole country doing super interesting things. So I would say it's not anymore, the usual suspects. So it's a good question. I think it's good to try to find what they are interested in through the voice of their faculty and the students.
Thank you.
So I'm currently working on my graduate school portfolio, and one of the things I've encountered, and I don't know if I was just kind of misinformed, was you have the opportunity after within your application to submit supplemental writings that you've done over your 4 years. As I'm working through different applications, I'm not exactly seeing that option beyond the personal statement, possibly a very topic specific essay and the portfolio. So given that I've done these writings, would you suggest taking out projects and putting the writings within my portfolio? Would you suggest emailing those writings to the admissions office, waiting until after the application is done, and then contacting them about it? How would you suggest approaching this?
I think a first reaction to that would be dependent on the program that you're applying. If it's a design portfolio, design work portfolio, I think a writing sample would not necessarily be there. But it could, depending on how do you want to also present yourself, right? That you might have, you might, significantly change the formatting of the text and the size and so on. And maybe you have a spread that actually is readable, and, it's really rare that someone will actually read in a portfolio, anything larger than 3 lines. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's rare that someone will read more than 3 lines of anything written on a portfolio, right? We're looking at tens of portfolios, right? I'm only going to stop and read further if there's something else that is it about a phrase that is highlighted, that is larger, right? You're really capturing people's attention in the portfolios, and that's what we maybe look further and pause and say, oh, let me look at this again, right? And so consider what program is it, right? In my case, I was going to a different program, so I did have, I did have writing samples and all those things, but it was a different kind of portfolio. So for MMark, I'm not sure. And all these things, there might be a lot of flexibility. You want to send a paper, send the paper. Send it extra, write it, send it. That's it. Don't be afraid of it. At the end, it's just some people will either read it more or less, but right, don't be concerned about that.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I remember including a few little writing samples in my portfolio because I had actually just finished doing something that was turning into a book. And basically what I ended up doing was on one page of the portfolio, I did thumbnail images. And then on the right, there was one important drawing that I did for it and kind of 3 lines of extra large text. But I think Marcelo is right that I can tell you from the last 5 years, I've looked at grad program portfolios in every school I've taught, and often I give it initially about a 30-second look through it, and whether I'm compelled to know more. If you haven't got my attention in 20 or 30 seconds, it's gone. And then I'll dive in more as we say, okay, how do we begin to rank these?
Yeah,
I guess
absolutely.
the writing.
Uh-oh. Tyrene, we can't hear you.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just me that I can't hear you.
Hello? Hello?
There you go.
Got it. So I did include a piece of a paper that I did for my final thesis, right? I had the written and the project. However, I just presented the argument or what I was about and did a big picture. In this case, it was like a overlapping of maps that I created, and that was kind of to showcase that I already have experience in doing complex research, but also dealing with documentation and archives and so on and so forth. So it depends again the topic and what was the purpose that you were writing the essay or the project.
Yeah, portfolios are I would say a different topic, and you know it might, and also it will change depending on the requirements, but it's exactly what Tate said, and it's rough, but it's a reality. It's like 10, 15, 20 seconds. Like 1, 2, 3. It's like, okay, I'll look at it, all right, and might be a first pass. And some others are going to be like 1, 2, 3, and like, no, I'm not. That's it. You know that there's right. It's harsh, but right. It's if you're just presenting like, I'm ready. Look at what I did, and you know this is my project. It's like, wait, but I'm not saying curiosity. I'm saying that maybe you did something, but I'm just saying how you're building curiosity. That's it.
I also believe that at this moment, most of the universities also allow you to submit a link for either website. So again, the most, if you expand on the spaces that you can showcase what are you about, go ahead and put it there, right? So again, make sure that you are aware of what are the options that you have to showcase your work. Familiarize what are the requirements, or what are, even maybe it's not a obligatory requirement, but you still have that option available, right? And that could also help you expand and kind of give that unique moment.
And right, I guess eventually you might do a portfolio session or something. Ask the people who was admitted here and there, right, from last year, right? Your friends, right? They're there, wherever they are, and you know, gather them all. They are the last portfolios. They were admitted there somewhere. So you ask them, can you come and show the portfolio, and where were you admitted, right? And you will find that some portfolios are going to be very different, and they were admitted in the same school. But that's a very good way to see how the relation between portfolio and being admitted and so on works. There's no formula. It's a lottery. right? It's a wild lottery. I know that a lot of faculty is absolutely overworked. Know that a lot of the faculty in some of this busy city are doing this on their commute, on a laptop, on a bus, on a train, because that's how it works. This is overworking people. So they just need to go to a folder that they downloaded, and it has 127 portfolios, and they start flipping through, right? And it's like, okay, did I have a good day today or not, right? And so it's human. It's human. There's no science to it. There's no. It's at the end, it's actually significantly human. So yeah, it's a tricky process.
I'm curious about the question about the red flags, right? If there's any red flags when you're thinking about universities, they could be a ton of red flags, right? How can you detect the red flags? Again, informing yourself, right? Looking at the curriculum. If you already know that you're not interested in specific topics, or you're not really I don't know, it's not your inclination, maybe make sure that that's not the core value of that program, right? And make sure that you are offer flexibilities around maybe the numbers of electives that you can have, right? Red flags also, cost could be also red flags. City, right? If you have family elsewhere and you like to be with your family, maybe thinking about and budgeting within that cost of attendance, budgeting how many flights would you like to have in your academic year. That also tends to inflate the price, but also gives you a sense of location, right? Again, I chose New York. My family's in Puerto Rico. So there were direct flights, very cheap, around a year, right? And that was kind of my mental piece, that if I had some blue days, I could go back home running, right? Some of you may not be interested in that.
And we did.
Right? I needed the beach. So some of you are not interested in, maybe you're looking for the opposite experience, right? You're looking for being away from your family, which is also a neat experience. So I think there's a bunch of ways that you can construct the idea of red flags. However, like I think Marcelo Tate said it before, there's no bad decision in going to grad school, because at the end, grad school is what you make it. What are you doing for this grad school program? How many actions or how much involvement you're putting in, right? If you decide to go incognito, shy, not participate, grad school is going to go over you, right? It's a waste of time. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of space, because we know all how everyone is willing to, or you're fighting to get into grad school. So be aware of that, right? Be proactive, be engaged, be committed with what you're doing, right? Don't make the decision of going without fully investing on it. And I say investment in terms monetary, but also ideological, agency, putting yourself in uncomfortable positions, taking yourself out of your comfort zone, because that is what grad school is about, right? There is nothing wrong in failing. There is nothing wrong in testing new ideas. The most important thing is that you come out after those 3 years with a specific role, goal, or intention, okay? So that is kind of my 2 cents within the red flag. It could be a very constructive idea.
You know, that's, to me, that's the hard part. Is on one level, you are applying here with as absolutely a student, and so you don't want to come across, you want to come across as curious and interested in things that you have started to identify as things that you're passionate about. But I will tell you, and I got feedback on this when I applied to grad school. Certain things that I said in my statement made people think that I already believed that I figured it out. And so in some ways, when you're writing your statement, a little bit of, you want to be a little bit hubris, but you also want to show some naivete and curiosity.
And with that flexibility, right? That openness to expose yourself. It is important that you are receptive.
Yeah.
right? If not, again, it would not make sense to go to grad school. If you know everything and you crystallize what you have, then you don't need it.
And they don't want you if they don't want you if you come in thinking that you've already figured it out. And at the same time, to Tyrene's point, if you haven't yet identified certain things that you really care about, then, spend some time exploring the world. There will be time, I took 3 years off before going to grad school. Marcelo took 10, right? And Tyrene took 5. So, you know, uh, it's okay if you want to take that time as well. I feel like I literally feel like if I hadn't taken the time to move to New York, I would probably be somewhere out swinging a hammer right now doing design build, and I'm glad that I'm not doing that now. So
And I think speaking to that note, Tate, another thing that I'm not sure, obviously given the COVID, right? But we all know that applying is one of the first steps, but also that comes along with the possibility of going to open house, right? This is a key moment, right? If you have the ability to visit the school before making your final decision, it's great. If you don't have it, it doesn't also mean that you can't make the decision, right? But again, inform yourself, right? Two good things that I could say about open houses, right? In my fail attempts of going to graduate schools, I actually traveled to New York, right? And one of those roundabouts of open houses. And even though I did not end up applying that year, I have to say that it helped me learn a new perspective, kind of figure out what was I really inclined, and also take out options that I was just putting there because I felt that I needed to do that, right? And exposing and hearing other people that are in the same boat than me, but also hearing other professors or other people in another state that help to change the perspective. So again, two things. Open house are really cool, but also talking about the topic is very important, right? If you don't feel comfortable in talking about the topic with professors, grandparents, dogs, plants, Twitter, Instagram, whatever, right? It means that maybe you're not connected with that decision. You're not willing to do and have that openness and risk, right? So make sure you start feeling comfortable with that idea, right? And expose yourself. Again, I ask random people. I didn't know them. I sent emails. I ask my friends of my friends. Like I talk to ex-boyfriends. I talk to ex-friends that I never talked to. Like go into that vibe. Make sure that you have an informed decision at the end of the day.
I sent an email to Felicity Scott, the director of the program I was applying. She's right there up right with the gods, and I just sent her my I had no idea what I was doing. I just wrote like an email, but like it was like an essay, right? Like giant email, just about asking what do I do? I got admitted here, there. How do I do this? I was just desperate. Like, what do I do? She replied extremely kind. Like, this is it. This is my response. And so you will be surprised how people might say, yeah, I have. Some people will not reply ever, right? But some will. So I think that's helpful, right? Just going to the open house, like it was really fun for me and telling and all of that. So that's a really good thing that if you could do it.
Well, that's where I would also say, I emailed Keller Easterling, but the thing is I'm just going to throw this out here. Like if I'm aware that like Kirsten Gears, for example, teaches sometimes at the GSD, sometimes at Yale, sometimes sometimes teaching at
GSAP, yeah.
Yeah. And, I'm probably not going to send an email to someone like that because they're not so, they may teach a studio, but they're not really involved in the program. So thinking about who you contact and that they are actually part of the kind of core faculty, especially at some of these Northeast schools. That's an important thing to think about.
Yep, super important.
Now I think I sneaked into classes when I was trying to decide, right? Given that I was already in New York, right? Maybe it could be a good, I'm thinking about COVID ideas, right? Knowing that most of the schools are doing Zoom activities or Zoom classes, maybe if you reach out and say, hey, can I be hearing your class today because I'm really inclined in going to that university? Who knows? That could be a good decision point to reach out, but also to learn, well, how is this environment working, right? So again, resourceful, be resourceful. If you really want it to happen, you have to make it happen, right? Align those stars for you.
I want to thank y'all again so much for y'all's time and for answering all of our questions. They're very thorough, and we definitely really appreciate that. So if y'all don't have any other questions or anything, we can definitely just go ahead and wrap up and close out the meeting. But just thank y'all again so much for y'all's time, and thank y'all for coming to the panel today.
Sure. Look at there. Hi, Carolina. Hi, Angela.
It's great to see.
It's like people hiding over there. Hi.
Again, it's very cool decision. 2 moments in life. Don't make it a torture. It's not about that.
Yeah. All right. Great. Hope to see everyone soon in some other format. But otherwise, meanwhile, here we are.
Somewhere other than a Zoom.
All right. Bye-bye.
Y'all have a good night.